Hey friends, welcome to this lightning talk which is brought to you by the Cloud Lunch and Learn Marathon 2021. In this session, we will have a brief overview of an exciting new service on Azure which is called Azure Communication Services. My name is Tijani Belmansour. I'm a cloud solution architect working for Kufumo, and I'm also a Microsoft Azure MVP. I'm the co-organizer of the Azure Quebec community, and you can find me on Twitter. You have my handle here, and I have two blogs, espacenuagique.com, which is my blog in French, and dev2/Tijani, which is my blog in English. So feel free to reach out to me. You may probably know about Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, Teams, Slack, Zoom. All those applications, what do they have in common? Well, they all have communication functionalities. So we can discuss with friends using chat, text messages, phone calls, and group chat, and eventually sharing screens. So imagine if you could add all these functionalities right into your own application. Wouldn't that be nice? And this is precisely what Azure Communication Services is all about. So Azure Communication Services bring you these features of communication that you can bake right into your own application. So you can make phone calls, you can send and receive SMS text messages, you can start voice and video calls over IP, and you can also host group chat meetings with sharing cameras and screen sharings too. If you are a user of Teams or Zoom, you may already know such functionalities. So what you have to know is that Azure Communication Services is like the foundation upon which Teams relies, as well as Dynamics 365 customer services. And now we can also leverage these features right into our own application. And all of these features are secured by various means. So for example, we can authenticate communication using various IDPs. So why Azure Communication Services? Azure Communication Services, first of all, is an Azure service. So we benefit from a centralized management. Billing is within our own Azure account. We don't need Office 365 licenses, and we can authenticate communication using various IDPs like Azure AD, Google, Facebook, Twitter, and so on. There are also some non-technical benefits to Azure Communication Services, one of which is a low cost of setting up communications functionality. So there is no need anymore to be an expert in networking or telecommunications to be able to set up such functionalities in our application. Azure Communication Services allow us to rely on the strength and experience that Microsoft has running Microsoft Teams, and all of this is brought and baked into Azure Communication Services for us to use in an easy way. There is also an on-demand scalability. Azure's Communication Services being an Azure service, it obviously has scalability built in and may support up to millions of users. There's also a fast time to market. So let's say you are building an application that includes communications functionalities. You can, of course, build these functionalities on your own. You could rely also on third-party services, and you could eventually use Azure Communication Services to enable or to empower your application with communication functionalities. So let's take a look at some use cases. The first use case that we faced here in Kufumo is a reminder for upcoming events. At Kofomo, we regularly host events and training events for our employees. And with Azure Communication Services, it will be great to use it to send text messages, for example, or another mean to our registered employees so they don't forget to attend to the event to which they registered. Another use case is consider we have medicine portal to which we can log in with some kind of IDP, and from there we could start a video call or phone call right within the application with our physician. We could also have a chat session with him or her, and optionally we could even start a video call and share our camera or screen if needed. Another use case is during this difficult time of pandemic. It's hard to welcome people in our house due to restrictions, but life goes on, and sometimes we have equipment or devices that break. So sometimes the issue is not that bad, so it can be fixed by us without having a lot of knowledge, but we need assistance. So by leveraging Azure Communication Services, we could build applications in which we can share our camera, for example, and have a technician helping us without being physically at home, helping us go step by step to fix the problem. And of course, if we have a HoloLens or something, it could be even cooler. And as you imagine, there are more and more use cases to Azure Communication Services. The simple way to think about that is to unleash your own imagination. I'm sure you will come up with many use cases that are fantastic. Now, how it works? Well, imagine we have that medicine portal. We could use the Azure Communication Services SDK to communicate with Azure Communication Service and send, for example, an SMS notification to our customer phone. For that, we will need to buy a phone number. So acquiring or buying a phone number happens right from the Azure portal. We go spin up an instance of Azure Communication Services, we go to phone number, and we buy one. For other features, we could rely on connection string. So if you already use Azure services, you may be familiar with this. Now we could, of course, use the Azure Communication SDK, and with a few simple line of code infuse communication capabilities into our application. But we could also rely on Logic App, and Logic App comes with connectors, one of which is to send short message service. Now, can we go further with Azure Communication Services? Well, yes. We could integrate with Event Grid and response to events. For example, as you can see here, we can subscribe to events such as SMS received, SMS delivery report received, chat message received, etc. And have a function app, for example, be triggered to handle such an event. One use case that we can leverage is having Azure Cognitive Services used to translate in real time a communication with a customer. Let's say I'm based in Canada and I speak French or English, and I'm talking to a customer who lives in Japan, and I unfortunately don't speak Japanese. I could use Azure Communication Services to leverage Azure Cognitive Services to translate the communication in real time. So for example, you can see here I'm chatting with my doctor, and I can speak in French or text in French, and my doctor could see it in English, for example. There's also integration between Teams and Azure Communication Services. This allows you to bring Teams user right into communication that are created using Azure Communication Services. And there are also more functionalities. So you can, for example, disable microphones during your communication, share screens, switching camera. If, for example, you are hosting a call and you are on your cell phone or smartphone, most of the time your smartphone will have two cameras, one front camera and one back camera, so you can enable a feature to switch between those cameras. So in order to sum it up, Azure Communication Services is a great new service that allows us to infuse communication functionalities right into our own applications. So we can make and receive phone calls, we can send and receive text messages, we can start voice and video calls over IP, and we can host group chat meeting with camera and screen sharing optionally. Azure Communication Services is an Azure service, so the management and the billing are centralized into our own Azure portal and our own Azure account. There are also no need for Office 365 licenses in order to use Azure Communication Services. There are some current limitations though. Okay, for example, data currently is stored in the US and in the East US region, to be more precise at the moment, but this is probably a temporary limitation. Also, phone calls and SMS functionality relies on having or buying a phone number, which is for the moment only allowed if your Azure account is a paid Azure account, so no MSDN, no sponsorship subscriptions, and if the billing address is based in the US. For an audio and video call, you can have up to 50 participants, but the number of active participants will depend on the device and the bandwidth. For chat sessions, you can have up to 250 participants. The pricing model is based on the number of messages for chat and number of minutes per call. And also you have a recurring fee to acquire a phone number, whether it is a local phone number or a toll-free phone number. Here you can find some more references if you want to learn more about Azure Communication Services. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you have a great Cloud Lunch and Learn marathon. There are plenty of wonderful sessions delivered by wonderful people. You can reach out to me at any time through Twitter. Thank you very much and have a nice day.